Welcome to Book Lounge by Libby. I'm Joe, and I am so happy you're here. This is the place where book lovers, authors, and industry insiders come together to talk about the stories we love and the impact they have. Now, before we dive into the show today, don't forget to follow on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, your favorite place to do your podcast listening. And if you're more of a podcast watcher, make sure you check out the Libby app YouTube channel for our full video episodes. So follow, like, subscribe, all of those important words. It really means so much to me, and it helps more people find the show, as well as if you leave a review or drop a comment. Again, it helps more folks find us, and I really appreciate that. But welcome to season 2, y'all. To kick us off, we are taking a look at reading ruts and writing slumps, all about how we can break out of everything that's holding us down in our personal, professional, and reader lives. Joining me today in segment 1 is Neal Shusterman, a New York Times bestselling author of more than 30 award-winning books for children, teens, and adults, as well as just more than 60 books in total. It still blows my mind. You can find him on Instagram at Neal Shusterman and on his website, storyman.com, linked in the description. And in segment 2, I'm joined by our amazing guest host, Amy, who shares with me how she breaks out and comes to accept her own reading ruts, getting you back on the path to reading again and doing it the way that makes you happiest. But enough from me. Let's turn the page and dive on in. Well, Neal, welcome. Thank you so much for being here today.
You're very welcome. I'm happy to be here.
Oh, I am so excited to get to talk to you. Your books speak to me and so many of my friends and so many of the people I get to talk to around the world in just such a way. And I feel like every time I say, well, what of his do you go back to? Everyone has a different answer. And I think that's my favorite part.
I love that. I mean, if everybody always picked the same book and the same story, I'd wonder what I'm doing wrong with all the others. But since everyone has like a different favorite, it means I'm reaching different readers in different ways.
Exactly. How many books are you up to? I know I said it in the intro, but you've written over 30.
61, 61.
I was going to say, like, it's a crazy number, 61.
Yeah.
How long have you been writing for?
Long enough.
Fair,
My
fair.
first,
Heard.
no, my first, The Shadow Club was published in 88.
Wow.
So it's been a while.
Hey, that's awesome, though. I mean, but published in 88. So this is why I could think of no one better to talk to about today's topic, about getting out of not only the slumps in writing, but in our lives. And
Hmm.
so, having been in the writing game for that long, what let's start at the baseline. Have you ever gotten completely stuck? Like,
Yes.
didn't know
All the
what to
time
do?
on a
Really?
continual basis. There's always points in every story where I am just stuck, and I say to myself, "This is the one that's going to kill me."
Really?
Yeah,
And with every story, you
with
have
everyone, it happens multiple times during the process.
and you have the moment, because I was gonna say, "Oh, so do you have, like, 4 you can think of where it's like, oh, that was almost the one," and that but it's every book. It
Yeah,
has a moment where you go, "Well, pack it up, we had a good run."
I mean, I could talk about this in the Scythe series when I was first started writing Scythe,
Yeah.
and I got to Conclave, and the story stopped dead. And that was when these teenagers were being brought in and being presented to the rest of the sides. And that all went well, and then suddenly the story stopped. And everything that I was thinking was gonna happen wasn't happening, and I had no idea where to go. And it took a long time till I realized, well, let me put myself in the heads of the characters. And it's when I got myself in the head of the antagonist, of Scythe Goddard, and I realized he's not gonna let this sit. He is going to torment these kids, and he's going to really mess things up for Scythe Faraday. And I thought, if I were Goddard, how would I mess things up for those characters? And I said he would suggest that they be put in mortal combat, that the winner takes the life of the loser. And I didn't think about that until I was stuck in that moment. And then that completely just propelled the story. But I was stuck there for a while.
How long do you have a sense of how long it was?
What happens is when I get stuck like that, I put the book down and move on to something else. And so I worked on a different project. I think at that point I was working on Unbound, the stories in the unwind world, and so I
Okay.
put Scythe down, went to work on Unbound, and then came back to it. So I think I was at least 6 months where I just let it sit.
There are two things that really stand out to me is that one, even though you have these massive blocks at moments with every story, you can still keep going. You still keep writing it. It was just time to switch over to some like a different room, a different gear, a different game. Have you ever been completely halted? Couldn't write a thing?
The closest to that was during the pandemic. You know,
Yeah.
people think that, oh, you have all of this time now. You're sitting at home and you have all of this time to write. You don't have to go anywhere. It's not like that. And it's I was so creatively stuck and stifled during the pandemic that I remember I used to have to set an alarm for 20 minutes to force myself to sit and write for 20 minutes. And at the end of the 20 minutes, it was like I was holding my breath all that time. And as soon as that alarm went off, it was like, oh, thank God I can stop now.
Yeah.
It was virtually impossible to get writing done during that year and a half. I did, but it was really tough and really painful.
It's interesting when I think back on the pandemic and I think of some folks just didn't get it. I mean, pre-pandemic, I traveled for work a lot. We had a
Mhm.
touring vehicle. I'd go out and host events at libraries, and there was a period in 2019 that I was gone for like 12 weeks, basically, something like that. I was home in that period of time like 2 times. And at the end of 2019, I was like, "Ooh, I would just love a little break. Just to not travel that much."
Careful what you wish for.
Uh-huh, exactly, and I no longer travel like that
Mhm.
for work, but then when you were home, you're like, "Oh, well, this is everything I've dreamed of," and the first week was great, and then the second week was great, and then the third week you went, "Okay, what now? I don't
Mhm.
think my house can get any cleaner," and the things I don't know anymore. So that makes a lot of sense. It was a wild time. Have you noticed any specific triggers for these moments where you get blocks? Since they do seem to come up often enough, is it burnout? Is it pressure? Is it just like ideas not clicking or things going on in life?
It's a little bit of all of the above
Yeah.
and how they mix and match. I used to do really well with deadlines in terms of the deadline helped to motivate me. Uh, but that doesn't work anymore. Now the deadlines just stress me out and I end up spinning my wheels and obsessing over it and not getting the writing done. So it's like I told my agent, who I guess of course you have to have deadlines because the publishers need the deadlines. They need to have dates. So I finally told my agent, tell the publisher any date that you want. Just don't tell me the date that you told them. And then when I don't make that date, extend it, but don't tell me that you've extended it. I don't want to know what a deadline is anymore.
But that's great. Do you think your relationship with deadlines changed as your success changed? Like before it was this is the next step in the series, this is the next, part in the plan versus now where it's like you have your voice, you are established, you know what you're trying to convey or
It's very slow. It's like, that frog boiling in water type of thing
sure.
where it's a slow change. I mean, I still have imposter syndrome. And I think that's something that I don't think everybody realizes. I think when I speak with every other author, everyone feels the same way. And the thing is, if you feel like you've got it, you think you're on top of it, that's when you lose it. That's when
Yes,
you're just a hack. But as long as
absolutely.
you always feel as if you're struggling to reach your own potential, uh, that's when you get better. That's when your writing is worth something. So even though I hate that feeling of this book will kill me, I know that that is a crucial element to coming up with something worth telling.
It's what reminds you that this still matters to you. It's still
Mhm.
to you worth doing. I mean, I think we all in our own lives can relate to the like, why am I so worried? Well, we'd actually be worried if you weren't worried about this, or
Mhm,
you're going in for a procedure and it's like, yeah, you should be nervous. You're fine, but you should be.
mhm,
Or right, once you take the role of I have nothing left to learn, you miss out on every opportunity. I
mhm.
mean, so I'm trying to think of the difference between idea slump and process. So in your world, I'm sure there's the like it depends, I guess it depends on how you write, but you have the sense of what's going on and maybe you get lost in the ideas and that's a different slump versus when you're writing and you're just like it's not coming to me anymore. It's not. Do you ever find that those two things are separate or it just happens when it happens?
I mean, I think that, the idea part isn't a problem. The
Mhm.
problem is trying to figure out what to do with those ideas.
How to make it make
There are
sense
too
in the
many
world.
ideas, and which of your darlings do you kill, and which ones do you use, which ones do you expand on, and trying to figure out which ideas are worth pursuing, even within a single story. There's so many different directions that a story can go, and even though I outline it before I start, I always throw the outline away because the story starts taking on new dimensions and new directions. And then I'm left with all of these possibilities as to where the story can go or how it's going to get where it's going to get to. And trying to hone all those together and bring everything together is a big challenge, especially in a trilogy. That's why I think the third book of trilogies are so long, because there's so many things that need to be brought together, so many story strands, so many characters, and everything needs to be satisfied and paid off. And so that's, so many ideas, trying to put it all together.
I also appreciate that you stick to it when you say, "This is a trilogy," you announce it's a trilogy, it wraps up as one. It's not the like, "Well, I decided on book 4, 5, 7."
That's not always true.
I know, but
Because Unwind was a single book.
true.
There was never going to be a sequel. I resisted for 4 years. I resisted writing a sequel because for anyone who's read the book, after the unwinding scene, where do you go?
Right.
And I
I
didn't want anybody reading, the sequel and saying, it wasn't as good as the original. And I never want to be that guy.
sure.
So, but then I came up with this idea of a character who was made completely of the unwound parts of other teens. Who is your identity? If not even your own memories are yours, who are you? And I became so fascinated by that idea, I decided, well, yeah, I'm going to write a sequel. And I was about two-thirds of the way done, and it was way too long. And I realized this is not just a sequel. This is going to be two books. I'll have a trilogy. But then I got to the end of the third book, and I was rushing the last 100 pages. It was 700 pages long. You know what? I have to divide this book into two. And so that's how Unwind ended up becoming four books.
Oops. But I don't think anyone's mad about
Yeah.
that. I just really appreciate that everything you do when you talk about your writing, it feels alive. It's I started with the outline, but I throw it out because the moment I'm in it, even earlier when you were talking about with the Scythe series, going into the minds of your characters to figure your way out. I think there is something so brilliant about that it's just the like, I believe in it's like a belief in the work. It is a belief in the world to be able to hop into the characters.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's necessary. I mean, writing is
Yeah.
a lot like acting. You have to be those characters. You have to be the heroes, but you also have to be the antagonists. You have to be those quirky side characters. You have to put yourself in that frame of mind so that you could see the world from their point of view and tell their story. Otherwise, it feels manipulated. It's the characters they have to act from something that's within them. If there's many times when I want characters to do things and I realize they don't want to do that. And then I have a choice. And I'm sure you've seen movies or read stories where the characters are clearly just following the plot rather than than
What's
acting
true
the
to
way a real
them?
human being would act in that situation. And I try to avoid that as much as possible. I want the characters to be as real as possible. And sometimes real people don't want to do what the writer wants them to do.
No, that makes so much sense, and again, it's like s 61 books, that's why we keep coming back for more, like, the energy we're looking for is there, the authenticity is there,
Hmm.
but speaking of, like, the grand we, so we know how deadlines impact you. Do you ever get the impact from audience expectation or external pressure?
Audience expectation is something that sort of you need to manage because I remember when Thunderhead was published and people would, the day after it came out, people were texting and emailing saying, I read Thunderhead in one day. Where's the next one? It's like, it takes more than one day to write it.
You just got it yesterday. Think of how long it was in process,
Yeah.
people.
And then, the series was doing so well and everybody, really loved Thunderhead. I had to live up to that with the toll. And that was the hardest book that I had to write until the book that I'm working on now. I think I always think that the one I'm working on now is always the hardest one. But
Well, it's
the
that,
toll
like,
was
you
hard.
grew with it, so
Yeah.
every book you get better, so the challenges get harder.
Hmm.
I wouldn't disagree that it's probably, like, the hardest.
But trying to make sure that you deliver something satisfying to the readers who have a sense of of ownership of those characters in that story, and you want to give them something that is going to work for them. Uh, and you can. It's hard. You keep trying to second guess yourself, and ultimately, it always comes back to it's all the story. Come back to the story. Come back to the characters. Tell the story that makes me as the writer satisfied. The story that I want to read, and just hope that it's going to satisfy the audience as well. And I'm pleased that for the most part they have.
That really just makes you think, like, there is thought at every level, and it's always beautiful to hear, but to kind of just see it in action, it's like, there's a care for the audience, there's a care for the character, there's a care for the story.
Hmm.
Going back to when you switch gears, when you jump to a different project, do you ever find yourself collaborating or walking away and resting or traveling? Like, what are some other ways that you have unstuck yourself from writing?
Well, traveling is a big part of it.
Yeah.
Uh, I seem to get most of my work done when I am on the road.
Oh,
And so I've made that my modus operandi.
yeah.
If I need to get a jump start on a project, I will go on a cruise. I don't care where the cruise goes. I never get off the ship. I just hang out in the lounges. I hang out on the deck. People are on a conga line. That's fine. They can do that. I'm sitting there writing and just if my office can be anywhere, why can't it be on a cruise ship? And so I do that a lot when I'm stuck, or I'll travel. I'll go to New York, or I'll go to rent a place in Mexico. I just get out. I go away, and I'll also tie that in with school visits. So
Mhm.
let's say I'm I'm going to. I was invited to Australia, and I spent pretty much a month in Australia and New Zealand, but I padded in a lot of time there to hang out in cool places and write. And so I find being in creative locations in different places where the stimuli are different than just being at home really, really helps my creativity. So when I'm really stuck, I just go.
Just go pack a bag and leave. You
Hmm.
know what you need. That I love that. I'm so used to the answer to being like, "What's your writing process like?" "Oh, I can write anywhere, but mainly I sit at my desk for this amount of time and I do this." And it's so fun to hear like, "Nah, my office has been a cruise ship several books in a row." Like,
Hmm.
and to me, the idea in Australia, that's just good business. Like, so
Hmm.
that's a long flight. Might as well add some extra time, make it worth going all the way.
Hmm.
Now, thinking about school visits, what do those mean to you? This is completely off topic, but I love the school visit circuit because I know how much that meant to me when I was a kid, seeing some of my favorite authors on tour.
Mhm. I think it's a critical part. I mean, it is a full one-third of what I consider my job, is traveling and speaking to students and connecting. I mean, hearing what they have to say about the book, seeing that, that light in their eyes when you sign the book for them. It's very powerful. And I think it's important. Otherwise writing is just a solitary, lonely thing. You're like you said, you're sitting in a room in your own thoughts, but getting out there and connecting with the people that are actually reading your books, I think is crucial.
It keeps you connected to what started the story in the first place. Like,
Mhm.
it's the people who want to read it, and it's the same thing of, like, I think of when actors talk about acting, well, they have to have seen something in life. They have to be seeing other movies that are going on. They also have to see that, like, weird interaction at the coffee shop. So I think writing has so much of that same practice of, like, how else are you going to know how other humans react if you're not
Mhm.
around the conga line on the cruise ship to see people just having a good time?
It's funny, people will be on vacation and they'll see me writing and they'll
It
think, "Oh, this poor guy
never
is
stops
not
working.
enjoying himself." No, this is my happy place.
This is your ideal. This is what
Yeah.
you want. You're like, I booked this for this."
Yeah.
What are some of your favorite things on a cruise ship?
I would say the lounges during the day when nobody's there, when the ship is in port and everybody is off the ship, and I get this lounge with this view of the ocean and view of whatever the port is, and I can sit there in this comfortable chair, and I have that king of the world moment. I'm sitting there looking out over the world and sitting there with my notebook or my laptop, and I can sit 3 4 hours just focusing like that.
I forget about the level of excursion that people do that, right? You basically just you have the keys to the kingdom, you have the pick of the litter, you can sit in all the best spots and just
Hmm.
be unbothered with the best views. Now, aside from travel, what else inspires you? What kind of books do you turn to? What kind of music do you love?
In terms of books, I mean, I love books that make me think. I love the books that say, "Wow, I wish I would have thought of that." And it's not limited to a single genre. When I go to the bookstore to look for a book, usually what I'm looking for is an author that I've never heard of before.
Oh,
And usually I will, whenever I speak at a bookstore or at a library, I always ask the bookseller or the librarian, if there was one book to read this year, what would it be? And if they tell me, "Oh, well, this is popular and this is, then everybody's reading this." No, I don't want what everybody's reading. I
what are
want the
you
book that
picking?
spoke to you, the book that
Yes.
you want to physically put in my hands. Whatever it is, whatever genre, that's the book that I want to read.
Oh, oh, I love that. Like, that gives me chills. I love that answer because that's always my favorite thing when I'm like scrolling through lists of what's coming out.
Mhm.
Like, we know what's placing where. We know what the lists look like. It's the chance to get to see, like, oh, why that cover? And then you read the description, you go, yes, that cover. And then all of a sudden you're like halfway through it and you go, well, I found my like off the wall wreck of the year. Like, it's so fulfilling.
Mhm.
So beyond writing.
Well, but when
Oh,
I finish
sorry.
answering the other part of your
Yeah,
question, music does play a very important part. I always create playlists for every project that I'm working on.
love that.
And I have different different. I have my brooding playlist. I have my comedy playlist. I have my epic sci-fi playlist, and I'm always pulling and adding songs and taking songs out and trying to sort of hone the list. There are sometimes I'll hit a song that just feels like the book, and that song will end up on endless repeat.
While writing, while editing, do these playlists do the whole journey with you?
Yeah, yeah. And it's mostly during the first draft. because that's
Okay.
when the music really helps me get into the story and into the tone
Yeah.
of it. Uh, I think that there's the one piece of music that is my most overused piece of music, and I'm still using it. It still works. Is the Tron Legacy soundtrack.
You
Daft
know,
Punk, not the best movie, but one of the best soundtracks.
I could totally see that because you're right. I'm like, I don't know the last time I watched that movie, but I can tell you, I have listened to that soundtrack within the last like 2 years
Mhm.
because it's one of those that like it ends up on all the when I put on exactly what you're saying, like I need the weird epic sci-fi ramp up when I have to like a spreadsheet. Sometimes you need a playlist like that to just be like, this needs to feel more important than it is. So you have that like big sweeping, like, yeah,
Yes.
these numbers matter. These numbers matter. Um, and
You
then
can
I'll
apply it to anything.
exactly it works for anything. And so then I'll start to like look through like, okay, what was that one song? And it's almost always like a Tron Legacy soundtrack song where I'm
Mhm.
like, well, damn. So beyond slumps in your writing life, do you ever feel that within life? I mean, you go from some of the some of the wildest topics in your books, and then you probably close your computer in the day and you open up the world to some of the wildest topics going on. Do you ever find trouble with balance, trouble shutting off when it's time to be done writing for the day, and that you feel stuck on the flip side in life?
It's hard stopping writing because when you're a writer, your office does your office is
There's
here,
no
so it comes
hours.
with you everywhere you go. And sometimes it is difficult to just get out of the frame. As difficult as it is to get into the zone. Once you're in the zone, it's hard to get out of it.
Sure.
And when you are in the feedback loop, when you are stuck and you can't figure out problem, it's really difficult to say, I'm putting it aside, I'll come back to it tomorrow. Because when you try to walk away, that problem just keeps playing in your head and you can't stop thinking about trying to, that mental Rubik's cube is still there and you're still twisting it obsessively. So many times it's hard to put it aside. I can tell you how many times I had sleepless nights when all I wanted to do is just put it out of my mind, but the story won't leave me alone.
So tormented by the work sometimes is honestly what that sounds like. I mean, it's not so much that you have these grand moments of being stuck personally. I mean, I'm sure maybe in the 80s when book 1, was going out, it felt a little different, but now it's more the like, I found the groove, I found the flow, but I gotta sleep, and you gotta let me sleep so I can figure this out tomorrow.
Mhm. And there are times and it feels the world is crazy as you said. There's so many things going on out there that are troubling and frightening on so many levels, and trying to not doom scroll. I know in the morning I like everybody else, I cannot resist looking at the news to seeing what fresh hell is happening today,
Oh, I know.
and it's difficult to not let it color the rest of your day.
It's so odd. We start our days in maybe the worst way possible now.
Mhm.
I think about it like I set an alarm to get up early and to be a little mindful, and then I go, "Okay, good. I was thoughtful. I reflected. I meditated. Okay, let's reward ourselves with 10 minutes of scrolling on TikTok." But I never get the afternoon good stuff that I get when I'm like wrapping up my day that makes me laugh to start my morning. It is always the worst. And so after I have
Mhm.
this like good night of sleep and this beautiful start, before I like put my feet out of bed and think about going to work, I'm just like, oh, do I even want to get out of bed? Like, what are we doing?
Mhm. I think there's a fear of not knowing. I
Yeah,
think there's a fear
being
of
caught unaware.
yeah, being caught unaware of what's happening, and that's something I think we all struggle with, and I think we all sort of have to try to get past. I mean, it's I mean, one of the things about traveling is that you have a physical distance from everything, and that sort of creates a mental distance. When I'm traveling and writing, I find that I don't doom scroll, that I don't focus on what's happening in the world because I'm kind of away. I'm away from my regular day to day, and so it's not
It's not
as
as tempting.
difficult. Yeah.
And once you move away from home base, you can actually like step away from those, but like that version of Neil's problems.
And it's not just stuff that's going on in the world, but stuff going on personally as well.
Right.
Taxes. When I'm at home, I'm obsessing over I have to get this done and I have to file this by this date. And but when I'm away, suddenly that stuff, yes, it has to get done, but it doesn't feel overwhelming. It feels like that's I can not think about that until next Monday.
Right. Right. Now that's a different nightmare. Having to think of taxes as probably a person who has so many forms coming from so many places.
Yeah. But that's just one example. I mean, there's so many logistical things on a daily basis that you have to deal with that it feels overwhelming when you're at home dealing with it. And but so when I'm away, I can not focus on the trivia of life.
And going away is more the like it's not a run, it's the like I need to focus on this part of the job today.
Mhm.
So I need that week to focus on this work.
Mhm.
Interesting. It's so interesting because I'm just thinking of all the ways that like the listeners can apply this to their own life. Whether you are joining us today for the first time because you want the kind of writing advice, or you are like me and just living your life every day and you go, well, I understand what I'm going to do with that and how I'm going to like not do the doom scroll first thing in the morning, or how I can go, oh yeah, this is how I need to step away for 2 days and shift my perspective.
Stepping away can be as simple as going to a different coffee house. It could be one of the things that I would do is I would find one of the fanciest hotels in town, and I would just go and sit there and write. And I'm not really away from home, but I'm in a different environment. I feel like I'm away from home.
Absolutely. I will also say I'm a big proponent of booking a hotel in the city you live in or 5 minutes away from home if you can afford to do it, and treat yourself to like an odd long weekend, because even just putting yourself in a hotel makes you go like, I'm away. I'm gone. And bring your friends with you and have a game night. And everyone's like, why are we in a hotel room? You can go because there's a great continental breakfast tomorrow at this Embassy
Mhm.
Suites, and we're gonna eat it.
I'll tell you where the cruises started. It started like
Yeah.
that in that I was trying to find a hotel that I could go to that was local, and I could just be away for a few days. And in doing the research, I found that I could take a 3 or 4 day cruise for less money than a Motel 6,
Oh,
and you get food. You don't have to pay
right.
for. So I said, okay, I'll go. I'll take this weekend cruise and see how that works. And then I was sold. And so uh,
And that became part of the process.
that became part of the process. And it's not just cruises. It's just doing,
Of
just
course.
every way that I can get away to focus on writing, I will take.
Since you don't necessarily care about the destination, what are some of the fun, wild places you've gone on cruises to write books?
Well, the Mediterranean. I mean, if
That had to be
when
beautiful.
I was when I get invited to do something in Europe, I will always tack on either at the beginning or the end a week long writing cruise.
I love that.
When I was invited to speak in London, I then took a week in Edinburgh. I went up to Scotland and spent a week there and hung out there and wrote and explored and had haggis.
Visited castles.
Hmm.
Haggis. Ooh, how was that?
It's it's really good. It gets
Really?
a bad rap. It's really good. They even make vegan haggis now, and
Wow.
it's pretty good.
Takes all the fear out of it that way.
Yeah,
No strange bladders that way. You can just be like,
yeah.
"Oh, okay, flavor profile."
Hmm.
Now, looking at some of your books, there are, of course, so many important stories and things we can resonate with, but at the depths, there are also so many beautiful lessons. When I think about resilience, when I think about shifting your perspective, when I think about moving forward. And I feel like that is something that we have touched on throughout this conversation together today. We've definitely talked about perspective. We've definitely talked about moving forward. What are some of your key fundamentals for resilience? What are things that are like your hallmarks for you go, I do this, I turn to this. This is what resilience means to me.
Resilience all comes back to my family. I mean, it comes back to looking at my kids who are all adults now, and you know, and seeing, you know, their dreams and their hopes, and you know, it makes me want to continue, you know,
Uh,
doing what I'm. It makes me feel young. It makes me feel young to see life through their eyes.
oh, I love that. That is what resilience is all about because it's us, but it's also the people that are important to us. There's so many layers to it.
And also, it's readers who are moved by the books. You know, I could be having a bad day. I could feel as if, you know, as I said, you know, this is the one that's going to kill me. And then I'm at a book signing, and someone comes up and they're clutching this copy of Challenger Deep, and they're saying, "Mr. Shusterman, this book saved my life." To hear things like that, it makes you realize that what you do is worthwhile. You know, I mean, I make stuff up for a living. You know, I make stuff up. That's what I do. And yet those words, those ideas have an impact on the world that I may never see, but every once in a while, someone will come to me and share with me how the stuff that I made up has positively affected them. And it makes me feel as if, yeah, I got to keep on doing this. You know, it's worthwhile.
That has to be both so much to receive, but also at the same time, so incredible to just know that you made a difference in someone's life, in someone's day, and in keeping going.
It really is what drives me is the knowledge that every word is being read out there by someone who may be affected in a positive way. You know, it
Yeah.
can change people's lives. It can make them look at things in a different way. It can help them through whatever difficulty that they're having. And you know, I mean, I feel very responsible. I remember
Mhm.
I was once on a panel at Comic Con. It was a panel, and it wasn't just young adult authors. There were a couple of young adult authors and a couple of adult authors, and we were all talking about dystopia. And the young adult authors were all talking about how dystopia is about hope. And the stories are always about looking at a broken world and finding the good in it, finding how to repair what was broken. And the adult authors were, no, it's about showing how horrible the world is, and you know, all of this stuff. And then we got into this discussion about, you know, what drives the story.
Mhm.
And the adult authors, it was always the story is the most important thing. It's always about the story. You have to be true to the story. And the young adult authors, no, it's the reader. The reader is what's important. You think about the reader when you're writing. Are you putting something out in the world that is making the world a better place, that is helping the readers' lives? Or are you just putting something out there just to tell a story? And I think there is definitely a difference in the mindsets between many YA authors and many adult authors in that way.
Absolutely. I mean, that level of responsibility, but also the thought of like, you can teach the lesson, that the adult authors are trying to say of like, all these things are bad and this is why this happened, and still have hope. Because the reader needs to receive that and decide what they do with it, how they experience it. If they are now going to fight climate change, like what are they doing after this? How do they
Mhm.
feel? And it's not that you're necessarily responsible to take them to a certain feeling, but you're here to arm them with thought and hope and perspective and prospects for the future.
Yeah, I mean, I always think that if you walk away from one of my books feeling despair, then I haven't done my job.
Mhm. What motivated that for you?
It's hard to say. I mean, I think early in my career, when I was first starting out, I just wanted to tell cool stories. I mean, I started at summer camp. I was a camp counselor, and I got to be known as a camp storyteller, which which was pretty cool because as a camper, I was not a good camper. because I went to the sports camp on the east in upstate New York in the Catskill Mountains, and I was not much of an athlete.
Mhm.
I mean, I kind of grew into swimming. That became my sport, but I was never coordinated enough to really do well in ball sports. And so, you were kind of at the bottom of the pecking order. You were always the last kid picked for the sport. I was never the last kid. That was always the second to last kid. It was always that one kid who was even worse at the sport than I was. But when I came back to be a counselor, once I started telling stories, I was like the most beloved counselor because everybody wanted me to tell them stories. So it was kind of like conquering my childhood. So I really took to this storytelling. And my first books were based on stories that I used to tell at camp. And the ideas behind the books, I mean, what motivated me, I wanted to tell a cool story. I wanted to get the audience to go, ooh, I wanted them to, that to see that light in their eyes when something really cool happened. But then as time went on, it wasn't enough. It
Mhm.
wasn't enough to have the cool story. I wanted to have the story that meant something and that you walked away from feeling as if you haven't just heard a story, you've experienced something that you need to think about, that you need to process, that's going to sit with you.
Mhm.
And that became more and more my focus was coming up with those stories that make a difference in the readers' lives.
Absolutely. I That makes so much sense. I mean, I think of when I get to talk to young adult authors, there is not, especially today, the like strict expectation of where you have to deliver the audience to at the end of the story. There's not the like, okay, bring it to the happy ending, but there is still a thoughtfulness of making sure that they're okay at the end of the ride, getting to the
Mhm,
end of the roller coaster and going like, we have all of our fingers, we have all of our toes, right?
mhm,
We're gonna make it through today. We've got content warnings, like everything is here for us.
mhm,
But I think that perspective specifically of, well, I want to be a storyteller. I want to tell good stories. I want to tell important stories. It's that trajectory of growth. It was
mhm.
you growing as a person.
Yeah,
Mm. Ooh,
I
I
mean,
love
very,
that.
very much so. And now, people ask me, is it hard coming up with ideas? It's not hard coming up with ideas. I mean, if I write like a book and a half, it works out that I write about a book and a half a year. If I only have two ideas in that entire year period, that's already too many ideas. And I have plenty of, coming up with the ideas isn't the hard part. The hard part is figuring out which of all of those ideas the world needs,
Right.
and not just that I want to tell, but is important to be told, is worth telling. And that's the hard part, figuring out the story that is worth putting out
Absolutely. I hear that. It's the like, oh, ideas, those I've got. What do I do with them?
there. Hmm.
How do I turn this into something? But not only how do I turn this into something, how do I turn this into something that matters?
Hmm. And it's a challenge, and it's a fun challenge, and for the
Yeah.
writer, it's like a roller coaster as well. I mean, you're hanging by the seat of your pants, and hoping it's all going to end right, and then finally you get to the end, and you say, "Whew, that was some ride." Okay, let's do it again.
Okay, I got off. We survived. I got time for another. Let's go.
Yeah,
So you find yourself writing about 1.5 books a year. Like that's
it
the
works out.
general flow.
Works
Yeah.
out that way. Yeah.
So you
And
basically
there's
never
some
stop.
years 3 books come out, in over a year, and then some years where nothing comes out. It all depends on the publishing schedule. But in
Yes.
terms of writing, it works out to be about a book and a half a year.
But you end up with like a good backlog that way. So you're like, well, there's always something ready to publish.
Mhm.
Have you ever found yourself taking failure or stagnation or any of these kind of negative words and reframing them into a breakthrough?
Always. And what's interesting is when you have to teach something, or when you have to talk about it and explain it to someone else, that's when you figure out how to frame things that way. I talk about how my first 2 books were never published, and I realized when I couldn't get them published, I thought they were failures. I
Mm.
thought that these books just failed, but it was only in looking back and trying to explain to people why they weren't failures, that I realized why they weren't. They were stepping stones. Everybody thinks that what they write is brilliant. I mean, when I was 18, I wrote my first book. I thought the publishers were idiots. How could they not see how brilliant this book was?
Yep.
It was only in retrospect, looking back, that I realized the book was not only bad, it was awful. It was it was just so poorly written. Uh, but I needed to write it. I had to write that first bad book so that I could write the second bad book that was a little bit better. And the third one ended up being The Shadow Club, which was the first one that was published. So those first two books were far from failures. They were enormously successful because they did what they needed to do. They taught me the craft that I needed to learn.
Yeah, you don't get lost, don't get hung up on the one thing that isn't working, the one thing that isn't coming the way you want it, not necessarily delete your art, abandon all hope, ye who enter here kind of thing, but just the like, give it the time, give it the respect, do the process, but then step back and go, is this is this something I actually want out in the world, or is this taking me to something better? I think of like the trope of the like unpublished author in media where it's like, well, I have this one, giant manuscript that I write, but the world's just not ready for it. And it's like, thinking about what you're saying, I'm like, well, write the second version of that, or
Right, the
write the
second, or
second
yeah,
idea
move
you've
on to the
got.
next story. I mean, that's one of the things that I always say is once you're done with something, move on to the next one.
Yeah,
No one will sit and write if they know that their book isn't going to get published.
right.
And it's natural to hope and to think that it's getting published, but then get on to the next one. And then what happens is when you've emotionally invested in the next project, suddenly the first one is not
Is a
as
little less
precious.
precious. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can do rewrites, and you can deal with criticism a little bit better when you've emotionally invested in something else.
That
So
makes so much sense.
there's times that I've seen authors who are or writers who have that one thing, and that's their whole life, and that this is what they want to publish, and that's not helpful to them. It's not healthy as a writer to put all of your eggs in that one basket.
Well, and it sounds to me like just from talking to you in this hour we've had together, it doesn't benefit you either. You lose all of your chance for growth, your chance
Mhm.
for discovery, your chance to do the next thing that's so hard it might take you out, but you're gonna get through it, and it's gonna be the next level up to your skill set.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that concerns me about all of the self-publishing that's available now,
Mhm.
because when you self-publish, you deny yourself the glorious benefit of soul-crushing rejection.
But you're right. I laugh, but you're right.
Yeah, because everyone thinks their book deserves to be published, and everybody has a right to have their voice out there. But we also need to know that we need to learn. We need to get better. And and many times something isn't if something isn't published, it's because it's not ready, or you're not ready, and you need to grow as a writer. But if you think you've already arrived, then that's when you stop growing.
It's also so important what you just said as well as, or maybe you're not ready. Because I think of the like you having to deal with your fan base. Amazing, brilliant, beautiful, loving, supportive people, but also you have to be ready to take that on. You
Hmm.
have to be ready for the email that says, "Okay, I finished it in 12 hours. When do I get the next one?" Because that can add pressure when you're not ready.
Hmm.
That can add that does psychic damage. Like
Hmm.
you have to be ready for so many of these components.
There are so many stories that you hear about authors who had fantastic situation with their first book. Their
Mhm.
first book sold at auction, it did incredibly well, and then they have to get to their second one. And so many times, either that second one, they never do it, or it is universally panned and they can never live up to the expectation that was set by the first one.
Right.
And that is, I feel sorry for authors who are in that position, who feel as if their best thing was the first thing that they've ever did, and they can't do it again. So there's nothing wrong with working your way up to that, and having those two, three, four, five stories that never sold to get to the one that does, because you will have built that base of knowledge and experience to be able to use that, as having a foundation for moving forward.
And I think that's so important for all of us to think on of like everything you do has importance because it is growing you, it is building you, it's building that base, it's building that foundation to accept what's coming next, whatever that means.
Mhm.
How do you keep yourself motivated after all these years?
But I feel like I need to many times just connect to that teenager inside of me that was so excited, to start writing. I think about the first time I saw Star Wars, the first or when I first saw Jaws. I'm always thinking about those moments of magical storytelling when moment I realized I want to do this. I want to be able to put something out there like that, and always have to connect with that and connect with that sort of that childlike excitement with the magic of stories.
Absolutely. Before we move into our lightning round, what are you working on right
Lightning
now?
rounds.
I
Okay.
know. Oh, I know. I'm closing with a bang.
Okay.
What are you working on right now? What are you excited about? Adaptations, books.
Well,
What can
what
you
I'm
share?
there's a lot of stuff I'm excited. I'm excited about the new book that's coming out, which is a collection of all of my short stories that have been out of print for a while, plus a bunch of new ones called Mindworks.
Look at that
And
cover. Oh,
yeah, it's this cool
that's
retro 70s
so
cover.
good.
And it's about 600 some odd pages. It has a couple of new scythe stories in there, and just a whole lot of different stories. I was actually this morning was talking to the audio producer, and I'm going to be doing the audio on some of the stories. So that's going to be fun.
Are you excited for that? That's
Yeah,
so cool.
that's coming out in November. And what I'm working on now, which is the hardest thing that I've ever written, is a prequel to Scythe. Working title is Rising Thunder. And just this week, I came to the grand realization that this can't just be one book. There's too much. I'm already at page 500 and I'm not even halfway done. So it's going to be either a duology, but likely it will be a trilogy.
Oh, so the only thing my brain wants to say is like, well, clip that. That's going on social. But no, oh, well, now I see how can that not be the hardest thing you've worked on, especially when you're going like, well, this is book one, and I'm already thinking we probably got three here.
Yeah, well, I mean, I set up a very, if I could speak to myself, 5 years ago, I would have said, don't set the mythology to have 12 original sides, because the stories, it was started by 12 people. Now I have to develop all 12 of them, see all of their points of view, and so there is a huge amount of point of view characters. And then trying to balance that and actually move a story forward rather than just have 12 novellas has been a challenge. But it's coming along really well. I almost done with it, and with the first book, and I'm looking forward to it coming out just about a year from now.
So exciting. Oh, that is so exciting to hear. Because
And Scythe is in development as a TV series with Peacock. In development, they haven't greenlit it yet, but they are very, very excited about it. We have a great director, a great showrunner. I'm very excited about the prospects for it, and I'll know right around the beginning of the year if they're going to greenlight it.
that's gotta feel so exciting to just to be back in the world, but also to be back in it now in like a handful of different ways.
Mhm.
Ooh, do you know how involved you're gonna get to be?
I get to be
Or
as
how involved you
involved as I
want to
as
be,
I want
maybe?
to be. I
Oh,
mean, I will be in the writers' room.
yes.
The director and writer want me there. They've been, calling me and emailing me, asking me questions. So it's been a really good relationship, and so I'm hoping that that continues. And I want to be as much of a part of it as I can.
Oh, I'm so happy for you. That's hmm. What a fun thing to hear because that's gotta feel incredible to be like, "Well, yeah, I not only do I wanna be there, they want me there. I get to be there. Like, I get
That's
to
the
see this
dream.
come to life."
That's the dream.
Right. Okay, lightning round. This will
Mhm.
take us a little bit back to the slump idea. What's your go-to comfort book, movie, or song when you're feeling stuck or down?
Uh, my go-to, book would be Lord of the Rings, the whole series. Music would be my favorite band from when I was growing up, Genesis. And, what was the 3rd one?
Movie.
Movie, oh, well, two movies from 2 different time periods. Of course, I mentioned Star Wars, the original. Now they call it Episode 4, but I was 14 when that first one came out, and every time I watch it, I still get the feeling that I got when I was 14.
That's magical.
And the other one is Inception, which is my favorite film of all time.
2 very different picks, but you know
Yes.
what? Makes sense.
Mhm.
What's one small habit or ritual that instantly resets your mood or focus?
What instantly sets my resets my mood or focus? I would say going for a swim.
Yeah. Swimming stuck with you after those years of
Yeah.
camp.
After I'm done with this interview, I'm gonna be go meeting my daughter, and we're gonna go swim a mile.
A mile. Yeah. As I'm like, "Oh, yeah, I can paddle around a little bit." No, we're gonna go swim a mile. Ooh, you're gonna be ready to write after that.
Yes. Or
And,
pass out, one or the other.
to me, both are valid. Maybe the pass out more than anything. And if you could go into any fictional world for a creative recharge trip, where would you go?
The thing is, most of the fictional worlds that I love are worlds that I would not want to be a part of.
Right?
So that's a tough question. I think I may take my pass on that question because I can't think of it off the top of my head.
We'll give you that
I
one.
mean,
I know, I'm
The Lord
like,
of the Rings is the obvious answer, but I've already used that one, so I can't.
well, but I was gonna say we could also accept Lord of the Rings after they figured it all out and we're at the end and we're happy.
Yes, yeah.
You can just go be like a happy
Oh,
hobbit.
yeah, I actually really don't wanna be in a world where there are any giant spiders, so scratch that.
Good point. I wouldn't have even thought about that, and then I would have gotten there and been very upset. Well, Neil, thank you so much for joining me today and sharing so much.
You're very welcome. I've really enjoyed it.
And listeners, remember slumps are natural, but creativity will always find a way forward. Thank you for joining us for this section.
You're you're very welcome. I've enjoyed, speaking with you. One of the things that you question that you asked that I just want to answer as a postscript is you asked how I continue going through the slumps. And the answer to that is knowing from experience, from history, that I will get there. I will get through it. Even if it feels like this is the one that's going to kill me, even if it feels like I'm never going to get through this, my own history has shown that no matter how bad it feels, I will get there. And so I always rely on that. So for your readers, no matter how bad the slump feels, just always remember you will get past it, even when it feels like you won't.
Oh, that hits me so hard because that's one of the things that my therapist reminds me. It's the like, hey, you can do hard things. You've done hard things before. You can do them again, and that's exactly what that is. Your trajectory shows you've gotten through the last slump. It felt like it was going to take you out. Well, now you can get through this one, and guess what? You'll be ready for the next slump when it comes along. What a perfect note to end on. Thank you so much. Listeners, make sure you check out Neil. Where can they find you online?
At storyman.com and at Neal Shusterman on just about all social media platforms.
Perfect. Well, thank you again for joining me, and we'll head over to our next segment. Well, hey, y'all. Welcome to the midpoint of the show. If you are new here, I wanted to take a moment and just introduce the book lounge format to you. For those of you who have already gone through season one with me, welcome. Skip ahead a little bit and go on in to segment two. But for those of you who are new here, hi, I'm Joe. I'm your host and producer, and I'll take you through every week on a different bookish journey. I am from Libby, the library reading app. We love our libraries and we love what we get to do here on the show together. So every week, in about the middle of the episode, once we wrap up segment one, You'll have a break like this with me where I will introduce a Libby or Canopy tip and trick, something to enhance your experience, or I will plug some merch for the show, or just share other important messages as they come up throughout. I want this to be a thoughtful few-minute break for you to step away and kind of get ready for segment two. It's also a great point if you need to pause within the show. This is a great place to pop a bookmark in. So keep that in mind. That's the main function of where we're at right now. Just a little 2 to 5 minute break for a tip, trick, place to come back to before you head into the next section of the show. So, segment one, we'll be joined with folks from the publishing industry, authors, narrators, audiobook producers, all of that kind of thing to talk on the topic of the week. And then in the second half of the show, we will be joined by folks from the online bookish community. So, different book influencers who will come on and give us book recommendations or also share their perspective on the topic. So, lots of great questions to be had in both parts of the show coming from different kind of points of view. So, we just wrapped up segment one about writer's block with Neal Shusterman, and we're about to head into a brilliant conversation with our wonderful guest host, Amy Allen Clark, where she will share some tips and tricks on how she gets out of a reading rut. So, with that, let's head in to the next segment. Well, welcome to the second segment of Book Lounge by Libby, where I will be joined each week by amazing voices from the online book community. Joining me today is Amy Clark from the Mom Advice and Book Gang podcast, momadvice.com, Book Gang podcast. I feel like I could probably spout out all of your credits from my brain, but why not let you do that, Amy?
Oh, yes. Well, I'm so happy to be here. Yes, I am the voice behind the Book Gang podcast, which celebrates debuts, backlist books, and under the radar book gems. So I'm in good company when I'm at the library podcast.
Always, always welcome at the library. Amy, thank you for being here and for coming back for season two.
Oh, yeah. I would not miss it. And I will say, I'm so enjoying your content.
Thank
And
you. There's a lot of it now.
I don't think people realize like what it takes to be managing the amount of voices that you're bringing on as a host. I love watching you work, and I
Thank
hope that's not
you.
weird for you, but I really am
No,
amazed by the like way that you're able to interact with all of these people and these voices. Has any
thank
of
you.
the shows that you've done been more challenging than you expected?
You know, I think when we set out for season one, it we had like a grand idea, and it was bring a bunch of voices in a room together. And then the first time I went to hit record, I was like, well, this is where the rubber meets the road. And what do I do when I put all these voices in a room? And we also brought in video and and once you bring in video, it decreases the amount of cuts you can make reasonably because we like it to look beautiful rather than chop. We tend to go a little more the like less cuts in favor of a clean edit. Um, but I think the biggest thing was also like all of a sudden, so many people the episodes were so long. I mean,
Mhm.
we would put out, an episode a week in the past, every week, but they'd be like 60 minutes. And then when we were putting out an episode a week, but there would only be 10 of them, I was like, well, I feel like I kind of have to make up some of what you're missing in the other months where there's just one or two episodes. So I think the biggest shock was when I would bring all of you guys together in a room and go, okay, let's do some book recommendations. Number one, being only able to say, like, you can only bring two books because we'll never get through the eight of you that want to do this episode if you all also want to bring eight books. I think that was one of the hardest things to just think of like, what is time? What is the most important? What does everyone resonate with? But I hope that for the folks watching, when you look at this, you go, oh, I want to focus on this part, or I want to focus on this part. And whether you watch just the part you're interested in the moment and you come back to the other part later, or if you kind of like digest in pieces, whatever works for you. I think there's an interesting journey no matter which way you go.
Yeah, I was curious about that because I was watching the one where you had the audiobook team on and were explaining like the whole production, and it was so many voices. You had audiobook narrators and all of these different people. And I had grabbed my dinner and I like sat down, but then I was done with dinner and I'm like, wow, this is like a lot. This is a production for your team to be able to pull off. And, you know, video component is like a whole beast that personally I haven't really gotten into. I'm lucky if I upload like a 90-second Spotify clip. It's like, here's what we look like, even though I have been taking video. It's just a whole other wheelhouse that I haven't even tried. So I just admire what you guys are doing.
Thank
And
you.
I think, if people are curious or haven't been able to dive into some of the episodes from the past, that they should really explore that because there is so much to do. And yeah, I call it my little lunch and learns. Like I always do like little lunch and learn. I watch a lot of YouTube content with lunch and like try to teach myself a new skill. And I love it. And so I hope people are taking full advantage of all the things that they're giving.
That episode taught me a lot, especially because it was like the first one to go live.
Yeah.
Because that was also when I went, okay, I had the concept visually of what this would look like if you opened it on YouTube or if you were watching on Spotify. But what about the people listening?
Yeah.
Sure, I did a great 10-minute intro, but what good does that do when I didn't go around the room and introduce everyone and say hi? So, that's me as am listening to it already being live in the world that I go, how
Yeah.
did I not think about that? So, yeah, we're always learning in this
Yeah.
space, and thankfully everyone is incredibly kind. Uh, but I hope everyone's enjoying the show so far. That said, because of course Amy and I are a dangerous pairing because we could talk about anything, anywhere, all at once, forever. But today specifically, I want your advice on getting out of reading ruts. How you take yourself from that moment where you're like, I simply haven't touched a book. We were talking about it before we started recording. I have been sick. So if you get any coughs in this episode, I'm so sorry. Of course, our lovely friend Andrew, who edits the episodes, will do his best, to at least silence me coughing dramatically. But I'm recovering from a few different things right now, and so I feel like I haven't done the reading I usually do, and sometimes that then spirals into a slump. So I think just to start us off personally, when was the last time you found yourself in a reading rut, and what do you think triggered it for you?
Yeah, so I have 2 bad reading ruts a year because it's around, like, content seasons. So
Mm,
I am working on a summer reading guide, and that's from December until it launches in the summer, and it's like I'm reading so ferociously. Like, it's so exhausting because I'm, like, trying to place all of the guests and all of the slots. So we typically have, like, 55 books in that guide, and we want everyone to know that these are actually, like, tried and trues versus what I'm forecasting. And this year I did give myself permission to be like, let's just pick a couple that you didn't read and just say, like, I'm on good faith expecting that this might be good based upon other people's reviews. And that did give me a little bit of a relief as far as like content creation. But after that guide drops, I don't want to read anything at all. I am so burnt out and tired. And it also happens, it'll be happening pretty shortly because right now I'm in the thick of planning our book club year, which we announce all 12 picks in, December. And so I'm reading frantically for that. And then once that announcement is made, I have this lull where I'm like giving myself permission to not
take a
necessarily
break.
read. And I
Yeah.
think that, I guess the thing I encourage people is that reading ruts are normal. They are a part of life, like not to get discouraged, that it's okay to lean into it. Like there are times where I'm like, you know what, I just want to watch movies and I do not want to read a book. And there's no shame in that. Like you should do what you want because when you're forcing it and like being like, no, no, I have to be reading because it's really important. That's when I read the worst. And it's usually things I don't love. I'm not going to be engaged with it. And it doesn't even really speak to the quality of the book. It just speaks to the quality of my mood. And I love to peek at like Goodreads when people start rating something like say 2 stars and I go back to their history just to take a peek to be like, how many books were 2 stars? Because it's usually a big like spiral for people because we all have those slumps. And instead of saying like, look, I really don't want to read, they just keep reading and they aren't connecting with books. And it has something to do with their mood less than I think what it has to do with the literature itself.
Oh, I totally agree with that. I feel like, the whole time, whether you are a listener back from the professional book nerds days or if you are joining us with Book Lounge, I have always called myself a mood reader. And I think we need to understand that that means so much more than just I have different tropes and different genres and different tastes based on my mood. It also means that I have seasons where it's like, I do need to step away for a minute, I mean,
Mhm.
the other night I did want to read a graphic novel and I picked up my Kobo color and I started to flip through and I was like, uh-oh, because I was just a little dizzy, that's that's
As
how it
you
goes.
are,
And
you know.
and as you recover when you've got some like sinus things going on, sometimes print and light and small and color and all of that. And I was just like, well, we'll do that later. We'll get back to that.
Yeah.
Now, kind of on that same vein, as you were saying, you don't really find that it comes from the books themselves, but a lot of times from life or the mood we're in. So sometimes we need books to help lift us out of a dark space or a negative mood or a down time. But it is really about embracing these moments when it's like you're saying, you just come through. And I do need to go back to that actually. You shared with me your guide, and I have shared the link with it to the listeners before summer this year. This is that Amy. Amy reads so many books, so you don't have to, so you can decide from these beautiful synopsis and recommendations, like what you are going to add to your TBR, especially going into the summer, what you want to travel with. Could any of you listening right now imagine reading like 96 books and then afterward going, okay, now I'm going to pick up number 97? Like, I think there are times where we have to go, I did earn a break. Like, even
Yeah.
when this is a thing you love doing, I mean, this is your job, but it's also your job because you're a reader and you love it. I mean, this is my job and I am a reader and I love it, but I never think of books as work. I just think of it as like, "Whew, okay, right now I need a minute. I need a moment." And as a mainly audiobook reader, sometimes I go like, I need to catch up on a podcast. I need to listen to what's happening in Night Vale. Like I have to step away from this kind of narrative and go over to something else. Or I need to like listen to two best friends talk about their inside jokes for an hour and 20 minutes.
Exactly. Yeah. I think so much of like being a well-read person is also just living a life. And it
Hmm.
can't just necessarily, as much as we all love it, be behind a book. Sometimes we have to be out in the world. What is it? The artist way that was so popular, where, I'm like clearly going through a midlife crisis because now I'm familiar with that. But I'm like, I need to do a little journal. I need to like observe people at the gym. I need to like take in things. And it makes you appreciate like character development and character work. I want to watch movies and learn how to tell stories in other ways.
Yeah.
So I think, that also has to be part of your life because it just brings balance to everything. And of course, loving the people that you have in your life, making a little space for that,
Yes.
and reading books. So
You gotta do it all.
yeah.
So if we were to just get into the thick of it, what's your go-to strategy to get out of a slump? What's the first thing you turn to?
Okay, so I actually put together a plan for a pivot for all of you.
Perfect.
It's a
Perfect.
3-step plan. I just know it's gonna win. Can you tell I'm type A? It's too
I
much. I'm a
love it.
Capricorn. I have to like get it all nailed down for you guys. So we're gonna
But
solve it.
but so get your notes out right now, because 'cause
Yes.
I'm like, "Can we put it on the screen?" Like,
Exactly.
as
Where's
they
the
bullet
PowerPoint?
list in
Okay.
front of you. Yeah,
Okay.
right? Go
All right.
for
So
it.
this was something that I was thinking about is that like starting from low hanging fruit, working our way up on getting out of the pivot. So my lowest hanging fruit method of pulling myself out of a slump is that I like to do audiobook samples. So I think that this is a really great strategy for anyone who's struggling. Go on a walk and maybe make either a playlist or a list of books that you are potentially interested in and listen to the first 5 minutes, which are available. I have Spotify and
Handballs.
premium, to just like listen to a sample. I'm not sure. Maybe you can speak to that if Libby offers sample.
You sure
Okay,
can get a
perfect.
sample of ebooks and audiobooks in Libby.
Okay.
No matter what, it's available for almost all of them. It's a
So
publisher determined thing, but I can't think of like many instances in I know like two times I haven't seen a sample pop up.
okay, perfect. So
That's that's pretty
let's
rare.
stay in Libby.
Yeah.
I love to listen to samples of books because honestly, a good book hook is going to be the reason why I pick up or put down a book. And you have a 5 minute time into a book. So you could be doing, I typically take a 2 mile walk in the morning, and that gives me about an hour of time to be doing a 5 minute sample, a 5 minute sample, a 5 minute sample, and you can move through it until one of those books hooks you, whether that's the audiobook narration performance, whether it's a topic that you're interested in, whether it's, I need to get out of a genre that I've been stuck in and I want to try something new. I feel like that a sampler walk is like the lowest hanging fruit idea.
That is so fascinating, Amy. And it's just the like constant changing, and it truly is just like you're flipping through the channels on the TV until you go, "Oh,
Exactly.
that one got me." Because my thing is always like, right, switch up your format just to break up the monotony, change what you're used to, whether it's right, you're getting out of your usual genre, you're getting out of your usual format. But wow, I love the thought of that, of like just go until something goes, oh, that one.
Yes, absolutely. And I mean, that could apply to anything that you're kind of curious about.
Yeah.
Again, going back to sometimes just needing a nonfiction, bender for a
Hmm.
little bit. Those are always nice for walks, but also being open to a 5 minute experience of something maybe you've been intimidated by, like could maybe an old book or a backlist book or something that's on like the Times 100 best books of, your lifetime kind of list
Right,
be
when
a
you pick
book
up the,
that's
like,
perfect for
one
you.
of the 100 books to read before you die kind of like,
Yeah,
I feel like this is another one of those great moments to pull out, like, make it camp. Like, it's almost like how do you make if you feel absurd because you're in a rut, number 1, of course, normalize and be like, "Well, we all go through this." But then 2, right, okay, well, you feel absurd, so make it absurd. Pick a book off of the most ridiculous list you can think of, or the most not in the age range sense, but the most juvenile list you can think of, because that's what I think of when I think of, like, the 100 books to read before XYZ happens.
yes, absolutely. And I mean, speaking to that, those are often like the cornerstones of things that you will go back to. And, I know that maybe that's not the slump buster that you were expecting. However, having hinges to conversations, to know those kinds of references, to have, conversations with generations that are older than you, like
Mhm.
knowing the classics or knowing a book that, has been on your mom's shelf or your dad's shelf. It gives you all something to talk about and can be hinges to conversation to also discover what else you might be interested in. So lists are great.
Absolutely.
They're fabulous. And yeah,
Absolutely.
take a sampler walk.
I think of, like, my mom loving like, tea room mystery kind of books,
Yeah.
and, I realized recently, "Oh, I love a cozy mystery too." Well, yeah, because the 2 of us watched Murder, She Wrote together, like, of course you love a cozy mystery, but that's true, something where you can kind of find footing together. Part of me also says, like, make a low stakes book club with a friend. If you have a friend who is one of your reader friends, and just say, hey, let's pick a random book from that list, or let's pick one of the air quotes for the audio uh, classics, and go like, why does everyone say I should have read this by now?
Yeah.
And talk shit about it the whole time.
Exactly.
You and I are both very positive people. I, well, I don't.
Online,
Yeah.
like, in per I have a brand, Joe.
When this recording ends,
I've been
no,
online for a long time.
that's
Like,
that's
that's for
true.
the real ones, like the
I
real version.
It's so true. I don't talk shit about a lot of books because
Yeah.
people worked hard.
Right, sure. Yeah,
Will I
I
talk
mean,
shit? Like if AI slop comes across my desk, that is the first time any of y'all are going to hear me talk shit about a book. Like that's the truth I will give here. But like it might not be for me, but it's probably for someone. But that's that you find that friend that you go like, can we read this together? Because everyone says I should have read it by now, and I simply refuse. But if I know every, like, and it doesn't have to be like formal. It could be, what are you doing on Saturday? Do you want to sit for 3 hours? And so sometimes you're reading, sometimes you're skimming. Maybe you take a break and go get coffee or whatever. So you had a day with a friend, you planned an outing, you read a book, you talked about it, and then all of a sudden, it kind of took away the power of the slump because you could do it and you forced yourself into it, but you made it fun.
yes, absolutely. I couldn't agree more.
I think there's just something fun about that. Another thing I love to do when I get into a slump, and this is controversial, I'm a rereader. You either are or you aren't. So that's why I say it's controversial. Uh, but I love to reread books. There, of course, are ones that I read seasonally in like my own nostalgic times. But when I get in like just a certain type of way or a very specific slump, usually a good reread will break me out of it.
So I want to be a rereader and I'm not.
Yeah,
The only time I do reread is when I pick books for book club and then it'll be a year later and we're finally like sitting down to talk about it because,
you're reading it
so many books
again,
have
but
happened like
yeah,
since then, or, I have engaged with it in a format that worked for me the first time, but maybe the second time I take a different format on. But I am actually finding it quite comforting and in a burning world, let's just be honest. There's a reason people like sitcoms. There's a reason that people like things because we know what to expect. And, we can prepare for that, whatever that experience is, or how it's all going to work out or not going to work out in the end, we'll know ahead of time. And I see why rereading is comforting to a lot of people. It makes me want to revisit some of the books that I really seem to enjoy. I also think it's fun to look at things with new adult eyes because my adult eyes are quite different than what maybe I liked in my 20s or my 30s. I was talking with content creator Tell the Bees, and he was talking about, Oprah's book club, and we were talking about that experience. And a lot of those books, when I read them, I was like a newlywed, and they were literary fiction. I think they were my first introduction to literary fiction. I didn't necessarily get it. And I also could not relate to midlife perspectives. I could not relate to a woman in her 50s going through things or what it would be like to
yeah,
have kids in college or whatever those topics were. They were not relatable to me. But I read them because they were like part of the club, and that was like the only club at that point in time where that was really operating at a high level like that. So yeah, I
absolutely.
mean, I would love to go back and maybe that's a slump buster is like, could I revisit my like books when I first got married? Like, what would I think about that now? Would that even resonate? I don't even think I'm the same person anymore. So really, I'm just like a whole other person, like reading the same book, but with a whole other perspective in my life.
It's very interesting to see how your perspective changes over time because a lot of the books I reread are from when I was a kid. I reread things from kid and teenhood. Uh, but there are books that I have reread hundreds of times, it feels like at this point, and I always thought I was discovering new things, but I think it's more the like, "Oh, I've changed. My perspective has changed. I can hear the message in there for this version of me." I mean, like, the number of times I have listened to Tim Curry read A Series of Unfortunate Events to me is an endless number of times. The Hunger Games I have reread quite a bit. At Powell's Moving Castle, that's another constant reread for me. But I don't have a long list of things I reread. It's a little, I guess, because I am a graphic novel and manga reader, I feel like that's a little different because I feel like those lend themselves a little easier in the world of a reread, because to me it's like, oh, you slip right into the atmosphere, you know what the story is about. I can, go cry tears with Rex Ogle in Four Eyes. I can understand the struggles in Pizza Face. And like sometimes you just need that moment to go like, oh, but
Mhm.
yeah, so maybe it was that like graphic novel manga version of me that's prompted it, but I don't know. I feel like I started rereading when I was a kid, so who knows? But
Yeah.
it'll get you out of things, at least every once in a while. Is there a particular genre or author that you turn to when you need to kind of like fall back in love with reading?
I wouldn't say that, but I am trying to read like my favorite authors, maybe their backlist books. We've been doing a Liz Moore deep dive, I feel like, on our book club. And, I had read all of her books, and there was like one that had slipped through the cracks that we ended up reading last year called The Unseen World. And it's like one of her lesser known, but it's actually about the 1980s AI. So it's like the
Oh,
early, early days of ChatGPT, and it's a beautiful slow burn mystery. And I was so glad to have stumbled upon that. And it reminded me that a lot of times, I already know who I like as a storyteller, and
yeah.
maybe there's a book that I missed. I'm not saying this to pander to the library, but I will say that the librarians display the books that they care about in a very specific manner. And, like, I just always look for their displays because the ways that they move the books around kind of gets my eye to, like, go to things that I would not normally pick up on my own.
Yes. Oh, absolutely. I think eh, libraries work the same way as bookstores do. Merchandising is important. I mean, what do they say? We eat with our eyes first. Like it is the same thing. I don't know if I can ever understand the oh, never judge a book by its cover turn of phrase, because I understand that that truly only talks about people. Like that is just a message to be like, hey, get a chance to get to know people. Like, yeah, sure, I get it, but like a bad cover, a bad jacket
For
design will
sure,
murder a book.
for
Like,
sure. Absolutely, and when you come out with your bad paperback, I'm like, "Don't do that, don't
oh,
do that. Why are you doing that?"
don't do it.
I also want to say, and I know listeners can't see this, but I have to hold up my little prop, which is the book page. We're all on the book page, right? Because the book page is where it's at. I love these catalogs, and
Yes.
I get them at the front of the library when I go, and I collect them because I like to refer to them when I go back to pick books for our book club because they are so well curated. They give you glimpses of authors and genres that I may not normally pick up on my own, audiobook experiences, there's backlist books. Like the one that is out this month has a book called Positive Obsession, and it is a biography on Octavia Butler, which I'm also holding up the
Oh,
book. But it was because I read the book page that I was like, oh, I need to go back to the library and get this book. And it is a book that I would have missed had I not grabbed that catalog. And I'm pretty sure, and you can be the Libby expert, but it's available online as well. Is that correct?
I believe a book page is available online.
Yes.
Yes.
So if you can't go to the library or you're a digital reader, you could likely browse it on your iPad and like see and experience the magazines, just like all the other magazines that are available in the catalog. And I find that these are really great for finding books that I wouldn't find on my own.
Yeah, that's where I go to what you do, what we do here at Libby as well with like libbylife.com. There are places to get recommendations everywhere. You can turn to the curated spaces in your library. You can turn to Book Page. You can turn to Book List and Book Riot, and like there are so many resources out there. Like don't be afraid to use them. Like they're there, and the library can get you access to them for free if there is a subscription. Don't let money hold you back, because the library's gotcha. And we always have to show our support of the library by using the resources they make
Yep.
available to us. Like that's, the budgets get approved be when they go like, oh, well, people need this, so let's keep doing it.
Yeah.
I wanted to go back to something you said earlier. Uh, how do you go about giving yourself balance and permission to not read when you want to, like, because we're talking about getting back into a groove, but we also do need to talk about the flip side of like respecting when you do need a break, when we do need to just step away for a moment.
Yeah, I do feel like this line of work puts a lot of pressure on that most people probably don't have to navigate that extra additional pressure.
Hmm.
Running a Patreon that people pay into, they are looking for me to be a voracious reader. They want to get lots of recommendations. And the fact is that sometimes my reading life is slower than they might expect or non existent. I go through like stages, and so I have learned to kind of keep a few reviews in the pocket that I haven't shared with them. Like they're books that I just didn't take the time to. They could be big blockbuster books too. Like I'm like, everyone knows the
Right.
atmosphere
Since
came
you
out, right?
focus
Like,
on,
right.
yeah, since you
We
focus
all
on
we all got that.
backlist and
Yeah, we
yeah,
all know the big books. We all know the national bestsellers. Like everyone knows those books.
right.
And so I do still hang on to those types of reviews so I can like fill in the pockets when I need a little bit of a break.
Yeah,
And I don't think that people need as much content as I think that they need, right? Most people
totally.
are not engaging with as many books as we are, and that's okay to give yourself permission to take a break. And when you really think about it, any type of reading that you're doing is great, and I think sometimes I just need like a break and reset. And I have also learned that, maybe changing formats and where I'm reading also helps me. So I have a Planet Fitness membership, which I use quite actively. And I just take a walk on the treadmill and I will do a book that maybe I feel intimidated by, but I'm doing it while I'm walking instead of like it's almost like it all has to be a task as it runs together instead of I have to sit down, I have to read. It's so much pressure. It's like, well, what if I'm just taking my little walk and like I put a book up and I like it, or I'm like listening to it on my headphones while I'm taking a walk and, doing other things like I meal prep or I'm doing other things and books somehow fit into the margins of that instead of making like this very intentional, like sit down, read for 2 hours. I think that's probably not most people. We're always on the go. We're always doing things like I
Right.
love how my phone can pick right up in my car and maybe I get 5 minutes. Even though it doesn't feel like I'm reading, I'm actually reading. I'm just not
Exactly.
that flow that we expect. We're like sitting down with a candle and like putting it on, it's like, okay, like that there are times for that and I'm really grateful when those happen. But the real reality is I'm getting ready in the morning. I have a book in my ear. I have to run a kid somewhere. That's when we're doing reading and it doesn't feel like I'm reading, so you could say I'm still, slumping it a bit because it's not like this really active, thing. But yeah, I don't think it has to be the way it is. And actually, I was thinking too, one of the things that I did is that I wanted to read Jane Eyre. So this is something I've never read. And again, going back to literary hinges and like people will say things like, I was inspired by that book or, and I was putting together a book list, which, we do that every episode. I try to do a book list and everyone was saying plot twist book, and I won't spoil it for you. But I did do Planet Fitness walks and just kind of had the book in my ear and, listen to the audiobook narration from Libby and, had, the book in front of me. And I was like, I have to spread the good news. Like, do people know about Jane Eyre? I am so obsessed with Jane Eyre right now. And I would get off the treadmill and just be like, hey, like, guys, stuff
Have you
really
heard of this
happened.
book?
Do you guys know? It's like coming to the latest season, like someone being like, I started picking up Succession. You're like, dude, that was years ago. Like, where were
Right.
you?
I
And it's
started
like, yeah,
White Lotus.
I know. And I'm like, have you heard the good news? Okay. Jane
Uh-huh.
Eyre was that girl. Okay. And I wanted it to be more immersive for me because I'm like, classics are a little intimidating. And this is going back to a really good way to fill time with a reading
Mhm.
slump is how could I make that more immersive? Well, I grabbed on Canopy. They had a like masterpiece theater on the Bronte sisters, which I didn't know anything about the Bronte sisters. first of all, I kind of embarrassed that I didn't know there were 3 girls and a brother who was a lot, okay? The whole movie ended
Yeah.
up being about him instead of about the girls. That's my only critique about it.
No,
But
that's a bummer.
all that is to say is that it was really immersive for me, and then now I'm going to be watching, the movies, and I'm going to, like, be down that tunnel, and it reinforces literary hinges. So I'm not actually reading, but I would not call myself in a slump. I'm making that experience or an experience I've already had with a book more immersive.
Yeah, it makes it a multimedia experience. It's the
Yes.
like, how do I listen to the BBC radio adaptation drama of it? Where do I watch the film? Like, I think you could have that like moment of obsession where you go, I'm just gonna like encapsulate this book for me right now and fully enjoy it and fully embrace it. And then when it's done, go, oh, thank you. Now what's next? And you can decide if you need another capsule collection like that, where you're going to pick another, whatever book that has a documentary and and several film adaptations and a this and a that, or you're back in your usual. But I think to all of this, the other thing I really wanna I feel like preach is the only word that comes to mind, is demystifying reading. You were talking about it earlier, the almost aesthetic nature we expect of ourselves, of just like, I brewed the perfect cup of tea and there's a cozy blanket and a candle lit, and I have my journal and my washi tape and my 6 different pens and my markers, and I'm gonna take notes and I'm gonna color and I'm gonna doodle while I, like longingly flip the pages in this perfect scene. But as much as we have to demystify that, like most times that I'm reading, I'm like hunched over with the pregnancy pillow that my friends bought me. That's truly like it's called book bow. It's supposed to just like sit comfortably while
Oh,
you e-read, but it's basically a pregnancy pillow because it's meant to like fit on your lap around you so you can hold up your device. Uh, but like you just like you step away from all of that. There doesn't have to be a beauty to it. There doesn't have to be a number for the end of the year. Because the thing I always get lost in is like, how many people have I not reached yet to just be like, hey, you would love an audio.
yeah.
I know you don't think books are for you, but I promise you might love an audiobook. And then all of a sudden your world is different. And I'm not saying I need to like make everyone read a book, but it's just the like there are so many more options now for people than there were before, and there's so many more adaptive features, and so I don't know. So there's like the layer of, yeah, there are the Amy's and the Kaylas who are reading hundreds of books a year to help other people find what they're going to comfortably read 20 of for the year. And then there's the me who's like, well, I read whatever I end up getting
Yeah.
through. But like I don't, so I think like whether you're reading 800 books, the people who don't need us because they'll read anything, everything, and they're just burning through books. And then there's the people who want the advice because they're a little more discerning or picky, or then there are the people, but I just also think of the people on like the sidelines. Like,
Mhm.
how do I grab you? So I think overall, I want to demystify the world of reading, that it doesn't have to be picture perfect and that you don't have to be anything specifically. You just have to want to try it. And
Absolutely.
that like last book you read in high school doesn't define you.
Right, and also that it's okay to be a woman in your 40s finally discovering Jane Eyre. I think sometimes too, like, the slumps that we get into are also our own habits of what we feel either capable of or, for me, I didn't do very well in school, and, it seems like in your 40s, why would you care about that? But at the same time, I think if something seemed intimidating to me when I was a kid, I might be scared to take it on as an adult, and it shouldn't be that way. Like, the worst thing that happens is you shut the book and you're like, yeah, that actually is not for me, and it
Yes.
never was. But what if there was a Jane Eyre out there for you? Like, seriously, like, this
I
is my whole personality now, and it should be for everyone, like,
yes.
honestly. So I don't know if I'm selling Jane enough, but I really enjoyed that experience so wholly, And I love that I'm an adult getting to enjoy that and that, my past doesn't define what I can read now.
Absolutely. There is no wrong time to pick up the book you wanted to read. There are no when you are an adult, you can read whatever you want. There are no age restrictions. If you want to try that middle grade series, go for it. My biggest recommendation if you want to try a new like even if you're just trying to switch up your genres, I'm like go young. See how they're doing it for someone that they're introducing to the genre and see if it's for you there and work your way up to your preferred age range. But I can tell you that the books that they're writing today, those middle grade books are just as good as those adult books. They are just written a little gentler. Oh, there are so many incredible thoughts to this. But if we could, as we start to wrap up here, what advice would you give listeners who feel like they should be reading, but just can't do it?
Don't. Like, honestly, as soon as you give yourself permission to not do it, you're gonna wanna do it. Like, it's almost like you're gonna be defying your own self. I can't even explain it. As soon as I say, "I'm not going to read," like, all of a sudden, it's, like, all I'm thinking about because now it's become, like, I'm like, "Nope, we're just gonna let it go for now." I don't think that people should push themselves through slumps because you will be giving 2 stars to books that are probably pretty incredible. And if you're starting to see in your reading life that there's like a real long string of that, maybe just take a little break. Like it's okay. It's okay to give yourself permission to have a slump and just lean into it. I used to, like, after those big, big push seasons that we have, really push myself to keep going. And it's like, you know what? No. And also, like, those kinds of seasons are great for the long, meandering literary fiction that I don't care what happens. Like, I can go to bed and I can read a chapter and literally nothing happens at all. I like those kinds of books, just full of characters floating in space, not in this era, like all of that. Or even just thinking about, again, going back, really backlist. Like, I would love to pick up The Shell Seekers. I've been wanting to read Lonesome Dove. There's some big brick books from like the earlier days that I just haven't done. And maybe it's just taking a chapter of something and saying, like, hey, I'll just read a chapter or a short story, collection where you can just read a story and be content with that. It doesn't matter if it's 5 minutes in the car and you got in 5 minutes, it just doesn't have to be a performance. And I think that has been the biggest learning lesson for me, who is all about, like, I did theater. I love a good performance, but your reading life doesn't have to be that.
No. Never be afraid to DNF a book. Never be afraid to say, you know what? This isn't for me. I'm done. You don't have to finish it. There are no grades. You are the one who decides if that book was good to you or not.
Yes. Take a
Close it
sampler
and
walk. Just walk
take a
around for five
take a
minutes.
sampler walk. Listen to the to 5 minutes of the audiobook. Read the first chapter, whatever that means to you. Get a taste for it and keep going. And if you don't like it, there are so many books out there. Don't waste your time on it. Move on to the next.
Absolutely.
Once I embraced DNFing, my reading life changed dramatically. I
Yes.
mean, truly, it changed in ways that I still don't think I can fully grasp how much better my life is once I said, "Oh, I simply won't read that."
Yeah.
So so don't be
I'm with
afraid to
you.
give up. Yeah.
Yeah. I give it 15%. And if it didn't win me, then 15% is like the maximum amount of time I will give to a bad book.
I don't even have a limit. The moment my brain goes, "Nope," I all I do is go, "Is that a nope because this book is bad, or is that a nope because it's not the right time?" And then I have 2 different tags in Libby, one that's just like year DNF and one that's like to try again, year to try again later. And so it either goes in the like DNF, don't even bother ever again, or it goes the like something in here was appealing to you, but it wasn't the right time, so try again later. And if it doesn't work the second time, then it goes into the DNF. But yeah.
I'm with you.
Well, Amy, thank you so much for sharing how you break out of reading slumps, helping hopefully the folks at home understand and accept that nothing wrong with a slump. You can embrace a slump. You can do all sorts of amazing different things to either rise out of it, live with it, or kind of like make it work for you.
Absolutely. This was so much fun.
Oh, always a good time when we get to be together. Well, now on to me doing an outro. Y'all, we are absolutely lucky with two incredible conversations today. First, Neal was astounding. I really appreciate his honesty and candor as he shared not only how he breaks out of writing ruts and slumps and all of that, but also how he takes that and applies it to his personal life. I appreciate him as a person and what he brought to the table today. And then, of course, I have so much love in my heart for Amy and so many useful tips and tricks from truly a person of experience into how we can get out of those terrible reading slumps when you just can't manage to pick up a book and read a single line or listen to even 2 minutes of audio. Just some great ways we can trick ourselves back into reading, but also the importance of accepting that maybe we just need a break sometimes. I want to hear from you, though. How many of you are going to try Amy's sample walks? I love this idea. Remember, if you want to reach out to me, whether you want to share how you feel about the show, if you want to share what's worked for you, if you have some tips and tricks, I can share them in a future episode. Remember, I've got an email address. It is bookloungebylibby@overdrive.com, and I would love to hear from you. Now, make sure you're subscribed and following the show. You won't want to miss next week, where I am joined by the incredible Rex Ogle to talk about getting back to school and back to books. But there are so many important messages in this conversation about bullying, about how dangerous products are marketed towards children, and so much more. Whether you are a parent, whether you have kids in your life, or whether you don't know it, but you need to heal a little bit of the inner child in you, I think this conversation is one you won't want to miss, as well as the second half of the show, where we will give you some wonderful juvenile middle grade and YA book recs. If you enjoyed the conversation, be sure to follow Book Lounge by Libby on your favorite podcast app and check out the Libby app YouTube channel for our video content. You can reach me via email, as I said, bookloungebylibby@overdrive.com. And you can find us on Instagram @libby.app. If you're loving the show, a quick rating or review helps other book lovers find us, and I am ever so grateful. Thank you so much for joining me today, and as always, happy reading! You can sample and borrow the books from today's episode in the Libby app, or if you're a librarian, find them for purchase in Overdrive Marketplace. Book Lounge by Libby is a proud Evergreen Podcast signature program. Explore more amazing shows at evergreenpodcasts.com. This podcast is produced and recorded by me, Joe Skelly, with editing by Andrew Alonso. Our theme music is High Five by Rex Banner, used with permission. Book Lounge by Libby is presented by the Libby app. Learn more at libbylife.com/booklounge.